Hello, everyone. Um, Welcome to Human Brain Expo channel. And today we continue our conversation about human brain health and wellness and everything related to it. Today we have special guest. We have Dr. Amine Zorgani. And what is so special about him is he has very unique experience in terms of research, in terms of um, product development. He has extensive research in the area of microbiome or human microbiome. He founder actually of the company dedicated to the subject matter. Moreover, he is invited a lecturer in reputable university in Europe. And also, as I understood from his profile, he actually explains his life mission as maintaining, sustaining, and of human microbiome, helping human microbiome to survive. Thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Amin.
No, thank you so much, Gina, for inviting me. It's definitely my pleasure. I'm always excited to speak about this fascinating organ that we don't really see, but it has a lot of impact on health. So happy to talk about the microbiome anytime.
Um, the first thing is I was very impressed with by the way you stated your mission. Why do you think that human microbiome is under a threat?
Honestly, I don't think it is I was inspired, so I don't think it's my exclusive mission. It's not only for me, but probably there are more people. They have very likely similar missions. So I was inspired by Martin Blazer when he had written his book called Missing Microbes, really speaking about these microbes that are going extinct and they're disappearing from this industrialized people that actually live in the cities. And this was supported by many studies. One of the latest studies, one of the biggest probably, was conducted by the Justin Sonnenberg's couple, the Sonnenberg's couple, but led by Justin Sonnenberg from California University in the States, where they basically looked into people from the hunter-gatherers tribe. They took their gut microbiota using their stool, and they compared it to the stool from people from California. And then they found that people from the hunter-gatherers, they had literally 723 more bacterial strains that were never discovered in people living in California. Somehow these microbes went extinct already. They don't already exist. And some people say that, and some scientists actually say that we've probably lost more than 50% of our microbial diversity compared to people 100 or 150 years ago. The truth is that our mode of living today is filled with a lot of processed food. One of the let's say the factors that actually influence negatively our microbial diversity. We eat less and less and less fibers, so we just eat more processed food and so on. And more importantly, we do abuse more medication today than we did 50, 60 years ago. So there are many countries where antibiotics aren't even under prescription. You literally can take them anytime. So this had led, in my opinion, that some and many microbes went extinct, which actually correlates very well with an increase of many chronic diseases. Some of them were literally not transmissible, and they became transmissible with the microbial diversity. So, yeah, I mean, I couldn't really stay put or stay silent. And I thought maybe if I just say it out loud, maybe if I really emphasize on the fact that I'm here to try my best by saving the human microbiome from extinction, and I think it will go extinct if no one raises their voice. So listen it, maybe will inspire some people, and it did for some cases. So that's why this. this mission that you see in my LinkedIn or my profile, saving the human microbiome from extension, is literally inspired from the fact that we are actually putting these microbes in danger, and we are putting our health in danger, not just us, but probably the humanity that comes in 100 years ago, in the future.
So let's discuss more precisely. When we're talking about microbiome, you mentioned that nowadays humans have like 50% less than they actually used to have. What you mentioned that for us as a human being, that means that more chronic diseases. But let's talk about what actually consequences can be, because that's not just about chronic diseases. The consequences can be a lot worse. What do you think? What part of our life, how microbiome is actually influenced? What the how influence? What is actual influence of microbiome on our life? Because it's not just chronic diseases, right? How
So,
microbiome
so
influence? Mhm.
absolutely. So the thing I think to understand the importance of the microbiome, so we have to define what is a microbiome first, right? So
Yes.
the microbiome is the composition of different microbes that includes bacteria, viruses, yeasts, fungi, and some archaea, which is more of a primitive type of bacteria that lives either in us, like inside our intestine, some in the stomach even, or on us, which basically on our skin we have a layer of microbes. We have in our oral microbiota, and we have also detected, or even vaginal microbiota for women, but we also detected some microbes even living in places that we probably didn't think of. Literally, some microbes living in the brain. But there are some controversies there, whether that's real or not, because the studies are being conducted to prove that. But there are microbes around us, literally, basically. The So if we take the earth and whatever lives on earth, literally either humans, plants, animals, and microbes, we find that the biomass of bacteria and microbes living on earth is literally more than 12 times the human beings. So if you take the whole biomass, so there are way more microbes living as a biomass, and as well as genes. So the genes is basically what brings the function. If you have a, if you look into the human being, we probably have. I mean, there were many studies saying that we have 10 times more microbes in and our bodies than we have cells, human cells. But
Mhm.
actually, it will be more that like 1 to 1 the numbers. Like we have more
Mhm.
similar numbers of cells and similar number of microbes, namely bacteria. However, when it comes to the genes, we definitely have 10 times more bacterial genes that we do have human cell genes, meaning that the functions that have been basically coded with these bacteria are
Mhm.
way more complex and way more diverse than what our cells actually do. And I give you a very small example. When we're born, we usually start feeding the infant milk, either that's formula or breastfed milk, similar for
Mhm.
animals. And the reason why we don't give solid food to these infants, either like in puree or like real
Mhm.
solid food, it's not because they don't have the teeth to actually eat that food, although they don't have teeth. They actually lack the bacteria that are able to digest any plant foods, which basically they come later after, like, 6 months, we start giving some solid foods. And then the human being, the infant, acquire some new microbes that are actually able to digest the cellulose, this they contain in the plant membranes. However, um, because the human cells don't have the ability to do that, and we do
Mhm.
know that today many things that are actually produced by the microbes in our body, the body itself doesn't have the ability to do so. The human being doesn't have the ability to produce some enzymes, some vitamins. The bacteria in our intestine do have those abilities. Just to mention, 90% of the serotonin, this hormone, is is produced in the gut, really. It's produced by the microbes in the gut. So meaning that whatever is these microbes are doing doesn't really touch chronic diseases, diabetes, inflammation, IBD, IBS, and what so, even cancer. But it also connects to other organs like the brain. We're here in the Human Brain Expo, so better connected to the brain. So serotonin is mostly produced in the gut, 90% of it, and many metabolites produced in the gut do reach the brain to improve brain connectivity or and brain function. So what the microbes in our body is actually touch is way beyond just the gut or this digestive system. It goes to
Mhm.
all the organs, and many studies have shown that today the gut microbiome axis, there are many. So we speak about the gut brain axis, we speak about the gut liver axis, the gut kidney axis, the gut lung axis, the gut skin axis, and there are some axes that we never mention, we didn't actually speak about. The axis which basically between us and whatever is around us, which is the
Mhm.
environment that we live in, the people we interact with. We today are basically, using this interface. However, if we were the same room, probably close to each other, we would have probably exchanged many microbes without even noticing, because human beings do have what we call the microbial cloud. Literally, we can sometimes identify who you are based on the microbes surrounding your intimate environment. So it's beyond just us, it's really, us and the environment.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You know what you mentioned, because I know that you have experience and some knowledge working regarding the gut skin axis. So talking about the skin microbiome, interesting fact. So? What do you think is the most vital? I mean, to help um, skin in terms of like aging, because it's very especially for women, it's basically billion of dollars goes to the skincare, and people spend a lot of time and money to prevent and help skin, also taking into consideration that in last century the more and more diseases related to actually skin, starting from skin cancer and etc. So, from your perspective, what is so special about gut skin, and how to um, what is the best way to approach it? How to improve, or how to, withstand? What is so special about gut and skin axis? What do you know about it? Just interesting.
Excellent question. I think again, this is one of the areas that I worked on for the last 3 years. So this the skin microbiome, although the skin
Mhm,
microbiome itself is a very nascent kind of field where, I mean, we started working on the microbiome, mainly the gut microbiome.
mhm,
The first, at least the first milestones, it goes as high as 1945, I believe, or 47,
mhm,
which is a long time ago, right? However, for the skin microbiome, we're only in the inception of what it is and what we work with. However, there, because it's of ease of manipulation, I mean, the skin is the topical layer, so it's very easy to manipulate. You just need a swab,
mhm,
some buffers, and you can already collect skin samples. And actually, you're throwing your microbes wherever you go. You're putting a fingerprint, not just your hand, but there is a fingerprint that actually comes from the microbes you're sharing with your environment. So as it comes to the skin microbiome, if we mostly focus on the facial microbiome, because the skin microbiome is very diverse. So we have the facial microbiome, which is mostly dominated by one bacterium or genus or genera called Cutibacterium acnes. And by the way, it is the same bacteria that causes acne. So
mhm.
Cutibacterium acnes was formerly known as Propionibacterium acnes. It does
It's
cause
very
acne. However, within this same genera, we do know there are other species. A species is like, it's like me. My name is Amine Zorgani, but if you want to create a species of me, you would say Amine Zorgani 003 right? So that is a species of meat, so like more specific. So Cutibacterium acnes has, it is the genera, however, or the species, but it has many different strains that actually differentiate each other from a pathogenicity perspective. So we are
Mm-hmm.
mostly dominated with one species or clade called A1. However, there are many other ones that are actually known to not cause acne, but rather they can even fix or treat acne. And I actually, the company I was working with, we were working exactly on this. So we're trying to isolate Cutibacterium acnes from healthy people,
Mm-hmm.
characterize that bacterium, and then make it to become a probiotic for topical applications to literally treat acne. So sometimes it can feel controversial because people would say, "Listen, Cutibacterium acnes isn't it the bacteria that actually cause acne?" And then you're trying to give it to me to cure acne. I said, yeah, because not all microbes are the same. So we differentiate the bacteria on the strain level, and this is the
Mm-hmm.
difference. We have other bacteria actually on the face that actually can be beneficial in terms of diversity and improving the function of the cells. The skin has different layers, so you have the
Yes.
dermis and many other layers, but all these are actually have what we call the skin barrier function. So if your skin barrier is damaged, you start losing water, and which is the transepidermal water you're losing, and that actually start giving you wrinkles and dryness of the skin and what so. What we try to do by modulating the skin microbiota is improving the skin barrier function, similar to the gut, where we say the gut barrier function, or similar to the brain, the blood-brain barrier function.
Mm-hmm.
In the skin, we say the skin barrier function. So improving this can improve or reduce this transepidermal water loss, like the loss of water throughout the skin, and keeping your skin hydrated, giving it this brightness and reducing the wrinkles. And most of the approaches currently actually do use that. There are other bacteria that are involved, like Staphylococcus epidermidis and what so. However, we don't have only bacteria on skin of the face. We have bacteria in the armpit, which basically can cause odor or malodor. So some people like the Dr. Armpit, Chris Calloward, he's actually working specifically on this, isolating or doing what we call skin microbiota transplantation. So taking some bacteria from people, actually they don't have any body odor. So they take it from the armpit from these people and transplant it to other people. They do have malodor, and you can see that there are some improved in terms of malodor for these people who actually receive the transplant, which is an innovative way. We do have also in other body sites different types of microbes. However, what is very, very important to notice, if we focus on this facial microbiome and we specifically
Mm-hmm.
focus on Cutibacterium acnes, we can find very important correlations between the reduction of this bacterium and the inception of diseases like psoriasis, atopic dermatitis, eczema, and so on. So someone would say modulating this specific bacterium may be a therapeutic way to improve this kind of diseases, but work still needs to be done in this kind of area. So, yeah.
It's it's so fascinating and interesting. I didn't know that every single part of our body has different type of microbiome. It's very interesting to know. Also, you briefly mentioned,
Absolutely.
and I saw a couple of your posts on social media. You mentioned about vaginal microbiome, and there is a connection between the chance of getting pregnant and the microbiome of vagina. I mean, it's I believe it's a different perspective because all very often doctors will go for hormonal therapies, and when I saw that there is a actually distinctive connection between actually fertility and the microbiome of vagina, I think it's a very interesting subject matter. And just if you would just say something, what do you know about this? It will be very interesting to hear, because I don't think that many people even aware of such a thing.
Absolutely, and I think so. If you speak about social media, so there are a lot of also misconception. So today, I've seen many, let's say, misleading
Oh, yes.
posts from
Mm,
either TikTok or whatever,
yes.
Instagram and
Lots of,
so people
yes, not
claiming
good
that
quality.
there
Mhm.
are some magic pills, like yeah,
Yes.
there are some like magic probiotic pills that can make you pregnant or improve your vaginal microbiota and what so. But let's just put the e's on the letter, as we say.
Mhm,
So number one, you need to understand what is a vaginal microbiota. Number two, how you can positively influence that vaginal microbiota, and whether
mhm,
going through the gut can actually make any sense or not. Because taking a food supplement that actually goes into your gut, would that really reach the vagina to improve that? And number
mhm,
three, which is the topic that most women actually and men try to improve and find solution for, is infertility and pregnancy. So can this
mhm,
actually work? So let's start with number one. What is the vaginal microbiota and what is its importance? So we do know that dysbiosis in the gut is actually a disbalance between the different microbes. So you have an increase of some pathogenic bacteria and a reduction in some beneficial bacteria, and obviously that's reduced into the diversity. So a reduction in diversity in the gut microbiota is considered as dysbiosis.
mhm,
However, in the case of the vaginal microbiota, a reduction in diversity is a good sign, because the vaginal microbiota is mostly dominated with one bacterial genera called lactobacillus, and there are different species of lactobacillus, like lactobacillus jensenii, iners, and many others, right? And these are the
mhm,
ones that basically are known to have an association with a healthy vaginal microbiota or a healthy vaginal health in general. An
mhm,
increase of certain other pathogens like Escherichia coli or Staphylococcus or Gardnerella, which is one of the known also to cause bacterial vaginosis, is a sign of an increased diversity in the vagina, and it's usually associated with symptoms. It doesn't mean that if you have Gardnerella now in your vaginal test, microbiota test, that you are specifically sick or you have a bacterial vaginosis. Because there are some women, they do have Gardnerella in very high quantities, more than 50% of abundance, but they don't have any symptoms. This may be something to watch, because maybe if they would like to get pregnant, maybe it could be an issue for them. However, the science shows today that one very excellent example that was published in the Lancet, there is one woman that she had three pregnancy losses.
mhm,
She didn't, she had miscarriages. She had a very severe bacterial vaginosis. She had 31 years old, and it was published in Lancet. I actually interviewed the professor, Henriette, that basically did this assay. It's called Patient Zero. And then what they did, they went and they found a healthy woman that had a healthy vaginal microbiota. They did a microbiota test on her vagina, and they found the usual composition with the different lactobacillus strains present in her vagina. So, and then they transplanted the vaginal microbiota from this woman, the healthy one, to the woman that had three pregnancy losses and bacterial
mhm.
vaginosis. And after 5 months only, the woman became pregnant, right? Uh, I mean, there is no need to go into the details
Wow.
what the
I didn't
concept
see
of
that
the
research, but
bacterial
that's very fascinating. Mhm,
So what this mean? This is one of the straightforward approaches that basically shows that transplanting a healthy vaginal microbiota to a sick person can actually have an influence not only on resolving her bacterial vaginosis, but also giving her a chance to actually become pregnant. We still need more tests, but there is a good chance that her pregnancy was dependent on her vaginal microbiota being changed from dominant
mhm,
with Gardnerella to actually dominant with Lactococcus or Lactobacillus. So the change in the microbiota enable her to become pregnant. Although more tests are needed, but this study is actually confirmed with many other studies. One of the biggest studies that was published actually also this year was conducted by the professor Sarah Lieber from the University of Antwerp on the citizen science project called the ESALA project.
Mm-hmm.
They basically collected samples from more than 3,600 women in the Flemish region in Belgium, and they looked into their vaginal microbiota composition. And they
Mm-hmm.
found out that these women, if they are healthy, they're mostly dominated with lactobacillus species and strains. So, meaning that a healthy microbiota, vaginal microbiota, is mostly dominated with lactobacillus. This is now became, how to say, a standard that we know that. So, okay, we do know what it is about a vaginal microbiota. We do know how it looks when it's healthy. If we have a diseased one, doesn't mean that if we bring some lactobacillus strains, probiotics with a pill as an oral supplement, this can actually improve the vaginal microbiota? The answer, to be honest, for me, as the
Mm-hmm.
studies I've seen, is no. Taking an oral pill with a lactobacillus probiotic doesn't mean it will improve or increase the diversity of the lactobacillus strains in the vagina, simply because the bacteria in the intestine have no way to get into your vagina. Like maybe through stool, and some of it will reach eventually, but it's not that straightforward. So if we would like to modulate the vaginal microbiota for any types of applications, mostly bacterial vaginosis, candidiasis, or even infertility, the best way,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, is number one, the one that actually showed to work, vaginal
Mm-hmm.
microbiota transplantation, VMT, or
Mm-hmm.
vaginal pills or gels that actually go straight to the location, and that you have better chances to see an improvement in the condition that we've mentioned. And there are clinical trials actually being conducted in this kind of matter.
When you mention like transplantation, can you please explain what does it mean? For example, you mentioned like transplantation of the microbiome, like and the peat microbiome. What do you mean? Like how the transplantation in reality looks like? Do they like take part of the skin, or
Okay,
how does look like transplant? Because it's
so
understood when you're using gel, it's understood when you're using peel. But can you explain what transplantation is actually mean in terms of microbiome?
yeah, so the first transplantation that had happened for human beings, it actually go way beyond our existence. It goes to the Chinese medicine, where we were talking about the yellow soup, basically taking stool from healthy people, the stool samples or and the poo, and basically
Mhm.
mixing it and giving to patients with diarrhea to drink it, which is called the yellow soup. So when you look into the gut microbiome, the
Mhm.
bacteria in the intestine, they actually they transit through the intestine, and we usually
Mhm.
collect them in the stool. That's why when we do a gut microbiome test, we actually
Mhm.
collect the stool samples and we look into the stool what microbes are in there. So if we would like to take these microbes in the stool, which are still alive, they're not dead. So if a microbe
Mhm.
is dead, it doesn't call a microbial transplantation because they're dead. They have to be alive. So if we speak about the stool, if we take a stool from a human being that is healthy and then we homogenize them and then we keep them alive and we put them in a pill, if I take the pill that contains the stool with the microbes inside, and then these microbes goes into my intestine and they engraft, mean they stick to my intestine, we can call that a microbial transplantation. In this case, sorry, it is called a fecal microbiota transplantation. So the first
Mhm.
fecal microbiota transplantation was actually approved last year by the FDA, which is the first microbiome derived therapy for the treatment of Clostridial difficile infections, recurrent Clostridial difficile infections. So this is for stool. So for stool is kind of straightforward. So we basically take stool from a healthy donor and we either homogenize it, put it in a syringe or an enema bag, and then we
Mhm.
can give it to the patient either through, from an enema perspective or through a pill where we need to have like a very manufacturing way to get that stool into a pill and keep the bacteria alive, and then they can take them, and that is the transplantation. When it comes to the
So in
skin,
terms
it's
of
a different story. So for that, we don't. Yeah,
you
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. Finish about the skin transplantation. I will continue afterwards.
Okay, cool. So for the skin,
Mhm,
it's different. So we cannot put the bacteria from skin in a pill. We don't have a biomass like a stool. Its stool is a biomass, or the bacteria on skin
mhm,
that we can just kind of scratch them. So we usually do. We take either a cotton or
mhm,
a swab that we
mhm.
humidify it, and then we can scrub it on the skin surface of the donor, and then we put it back, scrub it on the surface of the skin of the receiver. There is a transplantation already because the bacteria can transplant from one to another. For the vaginal microbiota transplantation, now the protocol is very defined, is very clear, and midwives can actually use it in the hospital. So we basically we take a gauze like a cotton, and then we humidify it. We put it in the vagina of the donor women for 15 minutes, and then we collect that fluid, then we put it back into the receiver vagina, which is basically consists of the bacterial, the vaginal microbiota transplantation. So it's different processes depending on the organ you're transplanting, but the thing that needs to keep in mind, regardless what the organ we're transplanting from, it has to be the same organ. Like if we take stool, it needs to go to the intestine, the skin to the skin, vagina to the vagina. But it usually happens from a healthy donor to a diseased or a sick person.
Understood. The question. So when you, for example, you transplant something, um, whatever it is, skin or we talk about intestine. What is the chances this microbiome to survive on the new surface? Because as I understood, I read several of your articles, and I know that you actually made research in the area of like actually bacteria, how they survive, how they live, because bacteria by itself, it's very interesting and complicated creature, right? So the question is, that's not, as I understood, that's not that easy to make this bacteria actually survive on the on the new at the new host. So is there any way to improve? So as
Yeah,
understood, we have to work or change probably habits or whatever, some behavior patterns of the person, of the host, right, to make this microbiome to survive. So uh, what do you know about the survival of a microbiome? I mean, what would be the best step, even like when, for example, we take probiotics, or if we're taking pills, if we're doing some different type of procedure, what is the way to help good, healthy microbiome to actually survive, right? Because it's not that easy, right?
absolutely. It's actually it's a very good question, and a lot of people forget about. They mostly focus on the bacteria they're trying to take, like as a transplant or as a single or multi-strain probiotic. However, they don't forget that these microbes need the support for them to thrive and make whatever they're trying to do. And let's decomplexify the question and not focus on the full microbiota transplantation, whether it's from stool or skin or vagina, and just go back to something very simple like probiotics. So probiotics are bacteria. They're proven clinically to have beneficial effect on the host, which is us or animals or plants. So for the probiotic to actually do their job or to actually function, they need to reach their destination. They need to stay there for a moment, at least 20 to 48 hours, and then they need to start fermenting wherever they found there. Like, because the bacteria by itself, some of them do kind of trigger some immune responses and reduce inflammation by their interaction with recognition receptors and what's so pattern recognition receptors, which basically is like an immune system will recognize the bacteria, and then there is a chain of cascade of inflammation or pro or anti-inflammatory things that will go away. However, the biggest function of a bacteria is actually when they start doing fermentation, when they start consuming the food they find where they go. If they go to the intestine, they have to eat something to produce something, right? So if they find nothing, they'll produce nothing and they just continue their way to the exit door. So, meaning, if you do take a probiotic and then you just follow that with a very nice cold bottle of soda that is filled with sorbic and benzoic acid, this preservative that will kill not just the probiotic you took, but the bacteria that is also there, the likelihood of you to benefit from the probiotic that you paid the money on is zero. Because number one, some of those bacteria that you actually took as a probiotic will eventually die in the stomach. They actually will never reach the intestine because of the acidity of the stomach itself. So let's say, okay, you ended up by having 50% going from the stomach to the intestine. They reach it, and then here you go. They get a flood of your soda or your, fast food and what so they don't have enough food to actually thrive on or ferment, and they just go away. So if you want to give them a chance to at least do their job to actually ferment and produce metabolites that are beneficial, metabolites, like the metabolite is these molecules that the bacteria produce, like butyrate, acetate, propionate, that are also known to transmit from the gut to the brain to improve your stress levels or improve your sleep or get you better brain function and what so if you want to give them a chance to survive, you better off give them the food they need. The best way of doing it is to eat fibers, eat plant-based food, right? So ideally, number one, you should never take your probiotics after food or at midday. You should take it early in the morning before you take anything. Your stomach is in a neutral pH. It's not that full. So if you take a pill of a probiotic, it can get quickly to your intestine, so reducing the chances of it dying in the stomach. So that's one. Number two, eat at what we call the rainbow food, fruits and vegetables. Literally, colored fruits and vegetables are filled with fibers, and some of them do contain prebiotics. The prebiotics are the food of the probiotics. If a probiotic have the food, which is the prebiotic, they have a good chance to produce what we call a postbiotic. The postbiotic is the molecules, the metabolites that the bacteria produce for us to function better. So, to come to your conclusion, if we would like to improve the engraftment, which is how the bacteria stick to the destination and the host and stay there, we have to give them the food to do so. However, if we are talking about transplantation, there is a better chance if someone from France transplant to someone from France that these people do match. It's like an organ transplant. We're transplanting microbes, right? Probably the chances will be less if we do transplant microbes from somebody from France to someone in Japan. Japanese do eat a lot of rice, a lot of seaweed, and what so. So they have a different microbial composition. Although the core functioning of microbes is there, but we don't have other microbes. We don't share those microbes. So that's why with the transplantation thing, it usually happens with people that lives in similar communities to increase their chances of engraftment. Don't like these bacteria stick. But if you don't follow with you have the seed, you have to give it the food, which is the prebiotic or the fibers. The chances of you to succeed is very limited.
Very interesting. So, if we're talking about meat, how actually consumption of meat influence the microbiome? Is it good? I mean, I understood vegetables and fruits, but when we're talking about meat, is it good for us to eat meat in terms of microbiome?
So, I mean, we should never say that people should stop eating meat just to keep their microbiome healthy. I mean, we do need proteins because proteins are also the building blocks of many things because they contain the amino acids. Some of it, with some vitamins, we can't find them in plants. We only find them in meat. I actually ask people to strive for a balance, right? So a balance between meat and fruits and vegetables, diverse diet. Today we have variety of different types of diet that are known to be good for our microbiota diversity. The best by far is the Mediterranean diet. If you go to the Mediterranean region, speaking about the south of France, Spain, Italy, um, those kind of regions, and also the northern of Africa, these people don't actually only eat fruits and vegetables. They eat fruits and vegetables, but they also eat olive oil, which is filled of many other very good molecules like antioxidants and phenols. They also eat meat. They also eat chicken and what so. So a diversity is also good. However, if you go into the extreme and your food is mostly composed from meat, you have a lot of other molecules that will be like processed from this kind of meat that they have shown to have a negative influence. One of the controversial studies that was only published recently with in Nature Medicine, I believe, and it was also produced in a documentary called "You Are What You Eat" by Netflix, just like last month in January, that actually took twins that are genetically identical theoretically, right? And one of the twins that was asked to eat mostly vegan vegetarian diet, and the other one was asked to mostly eat meat-based diet along with some processed food. And we could see clearly that the microbial diversity of the people eating vegan vegetarian diet was significantly higher than the ones that are basically eating exclusive meat processed food diet. So this is for the gut microbiome. And very likely, if they've looked into their skin microbiota, very likely they would see also the impact, because a lot of people think so just to give you an example, one day I've developed with one of my companies I worked with a probiotic for topical application for the treatment of acne, and that product was basically sold in the market. And one of my friends asked me, he had a son that was suffering from severe acne, asked me if I could send him a sample, and he was a teenager. So I sent him a sample. So he applied it for I think 15 days, and then he came back. He said, "I mean, listen, I mean, I like you. I think you do good science, but the product didn't work." I said, "It happens, but can you tell me a little bit about the diet of your teenager?" Yeah, he said, "Listen, teenagers, he's mostly eating processed food, like, fast food, not to name the brands and what so. He rarely eat vegetables, and he abused soda." I said, "You have your answer. I mean, if you take a microbiome based therapy that is designed to increase the diversity of your microbiota, you cannot couple it with processed food, fast food and all that stuff, because you are what you eat. If you are eating garbage in, garbage out, so, you cannot give a chance to this bacterial therapy to work if you're already eating garbage every day, right? So it does
Oh,
make
yes.
sense. And
Yes.
this is what I
So
say to everyone. So, like, whatever you eat is whatever you are.
I mean, it's is everything else, even if you work on, mental health, it's absolutely similar. You cannot just approach one single thing. You mentioned absolutely right,
Yep.
you know, thing. Yes, especially skin. Of course, if you, it's absolutely depends on what you eat. It's so important. And you know what? I read a couple of your articles, And I was actually impressed and I was actually threatened also because I never heard and I never, because I came from different type of science. I never read the idea that actually vegetables and fruits often can actually contain the wrong microbes, right? Because the way how vegetables, some, salad leaves, I mean, the preservatives that used to keep them in a marketable shape for a long time, and plus even salad leaves, depending on the way they've been gathered, the way they've been grown, can actually contain the wrong and poisoning um, microbes, right? And I read actually in your article about the way how we clean. There's a lots of issues related to way we wash our vegetable, because very often the water we use, because there's chloride, there's different type of chemicals in the water already, and this water we use to clean actually works against us. That often we think we clean vegetables, but it actually works opposite. We actually make our vegetables even more contagious and toxic for us. Um, and so my question is, taking
Yeah.
into account your research experience and the way you research, what is your perspective on the um, way of, what is the best way for us to stay healthy in terms of which food is better to buy, and how to clean it, how to eat it? Because when we speak about that vegetables and fruits healthy for us, that's very limited information. It turned out that vegetables, fruits can work against us. Can you please talk a little bit how to improve the quality? How can improve the quality of the vegetables and fruits we eat?
It's a very good question. I think what we also what we need to do in this kind of perspective is not to go too far. It's also to learn from it it exists already. So if we look into what we call the blue zones, these regions where people actually do live beyond 90 or 100 years old, and we try to analyze why do some people on this planet, and it's not like just one person or two people. It's kind of community. It's called the blue zone for a reason, because there are many people in the same location. They do live longer than the average other people, like 50 years old, 60 or 70. So if we look into the blue zones, or what we call also the centenarians, and we analyze their microbiota, we can find that these people do have a very nice correlation between the increased of diversity of their gut microbiota as well as how long they live. If we go and analyze now how they live, why these people do live longer, we can find that these people do eat everything that is not labeled. So if you ask me what are the things that I should be eating, I said try to eat anything that has no label on it. Like that includes things that comes straight from the earth, fruits and vegetables, or a good quality meat that is non-GMO, that is probably fed outside and kind of nourished with the sun, the chicken the same way, and what so. So the more labels on anything, the more scary it should become, right? Because the more labels, meaning the more ingredients they put, the more chemicals there are. Sorry. And that is probably not the right way of doing it, because these people that live in this blue zones, they just eat whatever they actually put in their earth, and they eat their fruits and their vegetables, their meat and their chicken, their fish, and what so. And within this, a diversity is better. When it comes to cleaning, I know that a lot of people became obsessed with cleaning uh, during the COVID pandemic, and it's understandable because I mean, I've seen people cleaning salad with alcohol, really, because thinking that someone
That's
caught
way
on a
too much.
salad will get you, yeah, I mean, it happened. I mean, you can find it in social media. A lot of people did that, right? So, literally, I've heard a lot of people clean everything with alcohol, including their faces, which is insane. But it's understandable. Some people can have fear. Some people can be, a little bit too worried. So, if give you an example. So there was, I think, a Swedish study. They looked into the kindergarten children's, and they split them into two groups: a group that only played inside, and a group that played outside, like in the garden where there is plants and what so. And they found that the people, the children that actually played often outside, they got less sick compared to the children that played inside. And if you dig deeper with other studies, we can know that actually going into nature and mixing yourself with the microbes that are found in nature increase your chances of getting less sick than if you do not. If you are an inside person, a person living indoors all times, not going to the forest, not diving in a river or in a sea, and you only stay inside, your chances of getting sick is higher. I mean, you can see it yourself. Go into the statistics and see how often people working from home or sedentary, they get way more sick than people actually working as farmers. Farmers don't actually get sick. I mean, very rarely they get sick because they do have exercise, like farming is an exercise itself, but also they get themselves mixed with the microbes they found on the earth and what so. So going back to nature is one of the ways to improve your microbiome health and improve your health in general. And there are also other people trying to work in this kind of thing, trying to think of a design of bringing nature to the inside. And I think that's a very good approach because mixing nature indoors can reduce our susceptibility to diseases. Cleaning less food. I mean, if you just went to the market, like a fresh food market, and then you got I don't know, a carrot from just like just was brought from the farm. I mean, you can just remove the dust and just eat it, right? Like, you don't really need to clean it with a brush and what so. Having some of those microbes is good. A recent study that was published, I think, in Cell recently, probably 2 to 3 months ago. They looked into how much of the microbes we eat from fruits and vegetables, how much they represent of our microbiota diversity. And they do actually represent 2%. So 2% of the gut microbiota diversity comes from plants, fruits, and vegetables. So if you do clean your food with a brush, the likelihood of you getting those microbes that are beneficial for you is lower, right? So chill, I'm not saying that just don't clean it at all, but don't dip it in alcohol, like as an extreme.
That's, I believe lots of people will love to hear it because there are lots of absolutely interesting information. But the last thing about leaves, so the salad leaves, what to do with them? Like basically, we have to think more about where we're getting it. So getting it directly from the farmers, and like don't care much about like cleaning like too much. Of course, just do general cleaning, but don't over clean, right? Do you understand it, right? So it's a matter of thinking how
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get it
absolutely. I
from.
mean, the thing is that, like, so what we need to keep in mind that so not cleaning is not a good idea because we do know that salad, as an example, because we actually eat the leaves, are sprayed
Mhm.
with many of kind of chemicals to to remove these herbs that are actually not good
Mhm,
for the growth of the leaves of the salad. So not cleaning
mhm.
it at all is a bad idea. However, if you just take a bowl filled with water and maybe some lemon, because the acidity can actually remove some of those microbes that are not good, very likely. And yeah, maybe dip it for 10 minutes. That's enough. You can eat it afterwards. So, and then just change the water, and that's it. So you don't really need to cleave leaf by leaf, and that's not needed, because having some of microbes is usually good for you.
That's good. I mean, that's interesting. You mentioned lemon. I guess it's can be helpful, especially fighting with chloride in the because lemon has an acid. It can be
Exactly.
substituted for the chloride. Because well, I already took a lot of your time, and I want to ask you last question because I am so into the being science productive and more social responsible. I very love the subject matter, and I was reading your bio on the social media. I mentioned you. Oh, I mean, I noticed that you, in one of your description, you mentioned that you are interested in pushing the boundaries of science. That's going to be the last question. So, um, from your perspective, what kind of boundaries we actually have in science?
I think one of the biggest boundaries I believe we have in science is not connecting the dots. So we have probably today more than, I think we're around like 385 microbiome companies working on microbiome actively worldwide, and they're all working in different topics. And we probably have thousands of researchers, professors worldwide also working in different topics. And beyond the microbiome, we have many thousands and hundreds of thousands of other scientists working in all their different topics. And I believe that not connecting the dots in a science is one of the biggest boundaries that humanity can have, because sometimes we can miss opportunities. Maybe I have an idea. I don't know, like, let's say transplanting skin microbiota to somebody
Mhm,
else. But I think I don't have the tools to do it. And then I just forget about the idea. However, if we can connect the dots of a completely different field of science, maybe aerospace, maybe electrical engineering, get inspiration from it, I think they can help us to do so. And the good news is, I think AI today probably can be the solution for us to connect those dots, reduce
mhm,
those boundaries, and increase in our productivity in terms of getting
mhm.
good quality science, and more importantly, science beyond just the bench, science that is applicable, that people can actually use and improve their health, wealth, and success.
Yes, I agree on this part with you 100% because I believe that science can produce a lot more social beneficial products and services than we have currently. And I believe that definitely interdisciplinary communications, a connection, because there are a lot of amazing, absolutely outstanding scientists do their research, but they have no idea how to make it happen, their ideas happen, or their the lack of the network they need to make it happen. That's actually the reason I created Human Brain Expo, and I created Inventors Club. That was the actual reasons behind, because I believe that we need this interdisciplinary connection. And we need to help those inventors, because I believe people in
Yeah.
science are very like people with PhD have absolutely I would say I'm old enough to say that people who got their PhDs, their mindset, the way how their vision and their understanding a lot of things is absolutely different from people who didn't go through this. That's absolutely 100%, and there are like very high potential for people, but sometimes lack of network, lack of the understanding what can be the next step, or what can I do with this. I have this in mind, it can be cool, but what can I do? This
Yeah.
the lack of the skills And another thing is, I believe there's a huge barriers in the business space, because business space, let's put this way, extroverts, people who've been in business, they have their boundaries, they keep their boundaries so high, in terms of they have the specific mindset that actually creates a lot of hurdles and a lot of barriers for newcomers and for bright brains to thrive through, to survive in the business environment, because that's a different base. I'm not saying that something is bad, something is good. It's just different type of mindset. The science
Yeah.
mindset and the business mindset. That's just different type of values in a different type of way of communications. It's very often those two people that cannot find the right way of communicate, simply because they have different values and different perspectives. I believe that very fascinating, interesting subject matter, and I'm very I was happy to see it and hear your perspective. So I really hope you will stay with us in our little community of human brain and community of Inventors Club.
Absolutely.
We will keep you posted. I hope you will get engaged with us in the different aspects, because we have actually coming several events. We'll have online events and we'll have in-person events on different levels. And I really hope we will keep conversation with you. Anyway, Dr. Mint, was very interesting. And I believe there are tons of absolutely outstanding, interesting information that can be interesting for a lots of people. We hope that we will spread the word. We'll have more and more people come and join us, in the near future. But anyway, we would love to keep in touch with you. And again, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. No, thank you.